If you have not already got all of your garden seeds purchased for 2021, you might not be growing a garden this year. Well, what's up guys, this is Daniel from Arms Family Homestead, and I got a bag full of seeds. These are a hot commodity. I don't know if you guys have started your spring gardens yet, but if you haven't, garden seeds are a hot commodity right now. Anything to do with gardening is hard to come by. I've talked to Leon from Gardening with Leon several times. He owns a nursery and a garden center, and he said since about January they've been selling an astronomical amount of seeds. I talked to Luke from In My Gardener. Luke's usually where I get most of my seeds from, and Luke has had to hire extra people this year because he can't keep garden seeds in stock, so he's hiring extra people. They're shipping out thousands and thousands of orders of seeds. And then even like today, I talked to a friend who he puts on a big banquet every year for a ministry, and he uses mason jars as centerpieces. Well, he can't find any mason jars to make his centerpieces with this year. He had to drive like 3 hours up into Kansas to find some, like a under the table shady deal off of Facebook Marketplace, and the guy was like, I've had about 60 phone calls. It just blows my mind. Like, I don't even understand it. But apparently everyone is gardening this year. Everyone's planning on preserving food this year, and I feel like I'm a little bit behind, but let's walk in the greenhouse and talk. I'm gonna have to take my hoodie off in there. It was chilly this morning here. We got down to like the 40s last night, but it's up to about 55 degrees and 20-mile-an-hour wind today. But in that greenhouse, it's gonna be toasty. Nope. Okay. So it's totally understandable as to why garden seeds and anything to do with gardening products have been a hot commodity. I think 2020 was probably a record year for most of the country in numbers of people that were new gardeners starting first-time gardens, and I think 2021 will probably carry over and be just as big, if not bigger. And my high tunnel here is not looking fabulous. So you guys know in February we got hit with record cold temperatures. We stayed below zero for a couple days. We didn't get above freezing for almost a week, but we had several nights that were excuse me, we had several nights that were in the negative temperatures, and it devastated a lot of the early season crops that I already had started. Some of the stuff that was planted in the fall actually survived. Well, we were, -5, -8, but even inside this greenhouse, it's not heated or anything, so we still got probably close to 0-degree temperatures. And some of the smaller stuff, a lot of stuff that I was just getting started in soil blocks and small pots and things, didn't make it. But a lot of the greens just amaze me. So obviously onions survived. I got another crop of onions started. These are self-wicking tubs. I've got videos on how he made these. They were a Gardening with Leon type self-watering tub. So if you want to check those out, you can go check out Leon's YouTube channel, Gardening with Leon. But these are beets. All the tops died back. We still have beets underground, obviously. But beet tops make really good salad greens. We juice the beets. Some Swiss chard. You can see where it completely died and has started regrowing. Spinach, this spinach is about to die off. We've had several days that were close to 80 degrees, so it's got pretty warm in the greenhouse. But this was all from last fall. However, there's still a lot of good spinach growing in there. Kale just amazes me at how resilient it is, how tough it is, and as far as frost and freeze. This stuff looked dead. I mean, it died and wilted. Some of it didn't make it, obviously, but a lot of it had wilted down completely, and it survived. Most of my raised beds, I've just about pulled everything out that we had in there for the fall, except some spinach that's probably past its maturity, and a few beets left that the moles haven't eaten. I'm still fighting moles. We always fight moles in these raised beds. Let me see if I can find a beet that has been eaten by a mole. I think I've about got all of them thinned out. So I'm going to be starting another rotation of mostly greens, but with it being mid-March, I think we're safe. We can go ahead and start some squash seeds, some zucchini seeds, and we'll probably be doing the majority of our gardening in here this year. I'm not going to have a giant outside garden. We'll probably do some. We'll put some tomatoes and maybe some peppers, and I don't know what all else. We may do a little bit of a small garden along the side where we had the pigs last year, but the self-wicking tubs did amazing through the winter. I'm really impressed with them, and I'm going to tear out most of my irrigation. See, I don't have any drip irrigation on these beds. This still has some. I need to come back and redo a new drip irrigation video on how we do drip irrigation. I'm telling you what, that's like a huge lifesaver for me. Drip irrigation on raised beds or an outdoor garden is hard to beat. You just set it and forget it, turn a digital timer on, and it waters your garden for you. It's amazing. So anyways, I'm going to get started planting a few seeds. I'm going to be using my soil block maker, make up a bunch of soil blocks, put some seeds in. Like I said, we'll do probably spinach, bok choy, Swiss chard, kale, those type of green things. And I've got a few small pots. We'll get us some zucchini and squash started too, probably. Woo! Y'all just about watch me fall down. Well, that'll get us off to a good start. I will let all this stuff get sprouted and grow, and then we'll come back in a couple weeks and start a whole nother set. That way we can rotate crops, things like lettuce and salad mixes and things like that are short-lived crops, especially in the spring because they grow so fast. We want to rotate those through. Some of the stuff like beets and kale and Swiss chard that last a little bit longer, I don't typically do as many successions, but stuff like lettuce, I mean, it grows so fast, it's mature, and then it gets bitter on you. So you have to continually reseed. But so far today, we planted a tray of spinach, beets, bok choy, it's a salad bowl mix. This one's got some butter crunch lettuce and a few Swiss chard. I was almost out of Swiss chard seeds. Then we got 3 different types of radishes, 3 different kinds of squash and zucchini. And a lot of this stuff you don't have to start in soil blocks or pots. I mean, a lot of this you could just direct seed. But one thing about growing in a high tunnel, which my high tunnel's big, but a lot of times you're pretty limited on space. So you want things that are going to be in those beds for as short a time as possible, especially early in the spring when you got all these successions going. I don't grow just near as much in here as I used to, but I still love growing my greens. We juice a ton. My wife and I juice a lot, and that's why we grow things like spinach and kale and Swiss chard and bok choy and pak choy and tot soy and all those awesome leafy greens, dark, rich, nutrient dense leafy greens. We juice them. And beets. Beets are interesting when you juice them, but they're really extremely good for your blood. But yeah, that gets us a good little start, even though we got froze out the first time. One thing I didn't show you earlier, I did well, so you guys saw me start some tomatoes and peppers really early on, and when it was -5 and there was no heat in the barn, I pretty much lost all those sprouts. But the other day I was in one of our local garden centers and they had some peppers, and I couldn't resist. It was March. You never see pepper plants that big this early, and we eat a lot of peppers. So we got a couple jalapenos, a couple bells, a banana pepper there, and then this next bed is some starts of broccoli. So broccoli makes, you can actually eat more than just the broccoli heads. We eat the leafy greens sometimes, but we juice a lot of those greens too. What are you doing up there? Huh? Really? You just gonna hang out up there? You know that musical, Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping? The wind is insane here. But anyways, if you have not already got all of your garden seeds purchased for 2021, you might not be growing a garden this year. I mean, it's that crazy. Things are so hard to find right now, and anything to do with gardening has been on back order and sold out for weeks, it seems like. And you know, does that mean that there's that many more people growing a garden this year? Look at these goats. That's crazy. You goats, I turned y'all out to let you graze, and then you just want to stay right here next to the barn and on the hay bales, and you think I'm gonna feed you constantly, don't you? So I don't know if there's gonna be that many more people growing a garden this year, or if everybody's just like stockpiling everything. I kind of lean towards the stockpiling thing, but we don't grow near as big of a garden as we used to. But I've always liked to preserve food. So I've never really considered myself a prepper, but I do like to like to take care of myself and be a little more self-sufficient. I'm gonna walk in the barn because this wind is insane. So I've always like enjoyed canning food and preserving food different ways. And a few weeks ago, we got hit up by Harvest Right, which Harvest Right is a company that sells freeze dryers. And at first I said, I'm not really interested. I'd never even really looked into home freeze dryers, but they asked if they could send us one to test out. And I've used it a couple times. So this is the medium-sized Harvest Right freeze dryer. My trays are in the house. We're washing them right now. But if you've never looked into a freeze dryer, these things are pretty neat, and like I said, we haven't done a ton of stuff in here yet, but you can freeze dry so many different kinds of foods and preserve them for literally like 20 years. Not that I plan on preserving them for 20 years, but so Harvest Right sent us the medium freeze dryer, their upgraded premium pump, and everything you need to get started. So a sealer, some oxygen absorbers, the Mylar bags, all kinds of stuff, which I haven't really got into that part yet. So far, all that I've really done is fruit, and we haven't actually been able to get any into Mylar bags, which I don't know that I really want to store freeze-dried fruit long term, but they make really good snacks. So things like apples, peaches, pineapple, we've done all kinds of fruit, and literally it just disappears. Like as fast as I can make it in here, we all just eat it that quickly. So I don't know, I think I want to try freeze drying some of our garden produce this year, and I've been watching a ton of videos on it. There's several channels out there that do a lot of freeze drying, and they'll freeze dry things like tomatoes and make bases for soups and stews and all kinds of stuff. But you guys know that we juice a lot. We juice a ton. My wife and I love juicing. But the greens, if you go to the grocery store and buy spinach or kale stuff to juice, it takes a ton of greens. But I also have seen a lot of people buy and use like a green powder. It's basically spinach or kale or something that's ground up. It smells like alfalfa to me, which may be really what it is. But I think a lot of those are freeze-dried greens that they put in a food processor and grind it up into a powder, and then you can just mix that powder into some sort of flavored drink and drink it and get those nutrients. So I don't know, I may try some of that with our greens and all kinds of. You can freeze dry eggs, you can freeze dry meats and soups and stews. But I posted a picture on Facebook the other day just asking if any of my subscribers had one of these or used one much, because I don't really know much about it at all. I'm not trying to sell you something I don't know anything about. I'm gonna learn this thing first. But a lot of folks were like, you need to try freeze drying ice cream sandwiches, Skittles, all kinds of different candies and things. They said they make really cool snacks for the kids. We definitely want to try the ice cream sandwiches. I mean, that to me, I don't know. When you freeze dry things, it's different than dehydrating. But I don't know. We're going to try all kinds of stuff. Supposedly this thing, the way it works, if you know nothing about a freeze dryer, the way it works is when you turn it on, it takes that temperature of that food on those 4 trays down to like -40 degrees, and then the vacuum pump sucks all the moisture out of the food. And it literally takes like 24 to 30 hours to run a full cycle. So it's a slow process, but I don't know. We're gonna try it out. So if you are interested, or if you want to learn more, you can check them out at Harvest Right. I'll leave a link in the description. And we're gonna learn how to use this thing. Hopefully put up a lot of stuff this summer. Like I said, I don't plan on doing like 25-year food storages, and we're not trying to stockpile and do all that stuff. But I do know when tomato harvest comes around, you end up with way more tomatoes than you can eat, way more than you can even put in jars sometimes. Canning is a slow process and takes a lot of time, but it works. This is just another way to store food and preserve it for later, and you can do other things with it. So anyways, I just wanted to show you guys that. A lot of people have been asking, because you guys are smart. You guys pay attention, because this thing's been on the shelf in here for a few weeks. And like one day I was pushing my diesel tank across here, and I saw like 4 or 5 comments that said, "Hey, what's that big black thing on the shelf? Is that a freeze dryer?" And I hadn't mentioned it, but people spot that stuff and people pick up on it. But anyways, so we're gonna be doing some of that hopefully this spring and summer, and learning how to use this thing and adding other ways of storing food to our arsenal. So anyways, guys, that's all I've got for today. We got quite a few seeds planted. Gardening season's here. Are you guys growing a big garden this year if you hadn't got your seeds? MIgardener.com has a huge selection, but like right now he is sold out of a ton of stuff. Haas Tools, I know, sells a lot of seeds. I think Johnny's Seeds has a pretty good selection still. I was on there the other day. Their seeds are a little more expensive. That's why I like MI Gardener. They're cheap. But Johnny Seeds has a huge selection. A lot of them are heirloom, and they're really good seeds, but they are pricey. But I think they have a little better selection right now. So anyways, guys, that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great day. And as always, we'll see you on the next video.